Dear St. Andrews students, greetings of the day. We hope you are staying home and are safe. For the meantime, till the schools are not open, we will study through videos. Today's chapter is Print Culture and the Modern World. We'll discuss from the print revolution onwards. Yesterday, we have seen about printing in China, which was wholly based on hand printing. In that printing, wood blocks were used to print the literary material. Then we have seen how the imperial state of China has controlled the printing practices and methods. It was just like a monopoly which was controlled by the Chinese authorities. Then this technology, that is a printing technology based on wood block printing, was carried by Buddhist missionaries to the island country, that is Japan. There, the first book they have printed, it was known as Diamond Sutra. Diamond Sutra was also based on hand printing. Most of the works in Japan related to the printing material was based on hands. As we have seen in China that urban culture has boomed up. Around that urban cultures, the foreigners or the European, they have settled down and they have opened up their outpost, and they have brought their technology which was based on mechanical machines. So the Chinese people, they diverted towards the mechanical print from traditional prints. In a similar way, in Japan, there was a city named Edo, which was popularly known as Tokyo in this modern world. There the printing flourished, and urban culture was seen in most of the printing materials. Visual materials were printed, which tells you about the elegant urban culture of Japan. There were books on women's, books on musical instruments, and then there were calculations, and then it was about the tea gatherings and festivals, and it was about some famous cities too. This was all done with the printing material. Then we have seen that print has spreaded into Europe. The silk paper, what we have, the Chinese paper, it was reached up to the Europe through the Silk Route. Silk Route, which was very famous for silk product, which was manufactured in China, and that silk cloth was sold out in European countries. So through that trade route, this Chinese paper in forms of maybe cloth printing, maybe printed material related with manuscripts, they reached Europe. So they know about how to manufacture, how to produce the paper. The printing technology was brought by Marco Polo, one of the traveler of Italy. He came back to Italy, and he brought the knowledge and technology of how to print the printing materials. He brought the knowledge of wood block printing, and from Italy, that wood block printing, it is spread to the nearby countries. In Europe, the printing material, there were two types. One was for the rich society, the upper class. The other one was for the poor segments, or poor peoples, or the lower caste category people, or the workers, or the students, or the merchants we have. The printing material which was produced for the lower caste, or the category, or the workers, or the students, or the merchants, was known as the cheap books, whereas the printing material which was produced or which was manufactured for higher class or upper classes, it was known as vellum. Vellum was a parchment which was made up of animal skin. On that, printing was done. So we can see there is a class print which was based on the we have a section in the society. So the vellum was the costliest one, and the cheap books, they were meant for merchants and students. As the printing flourished in Europe, there was a great demand for printed books. So how this demand was fulfilled? Initially, they started acquiring scribes, and scribes, they were writing manuscripts, and those manuscripts were sold by the booksellers. One bookseller, he had 50 scribes to produce one of the manuscripts, but still the demand was not met. The manuscripts were fragile, it cannot be carried, it was very hard to read because there were different literary styles, and therefore there were limitations related with the manuscripts. Then the technology which was brought by Marco Polo, that was a wood block printing, it became famous and popular in all over the Europe, and it has started printing textile, playing cards, or religious text or materials, and this has was a good innovation that was related with the wood block printing, that it has reduced down the demand which was set up by the readers. Then still there was a demand, but the demand has to be fulfilled. So there was a man named Gutenberg, John Gutenberg. In 1448 he invented a machine known as a printing press at Strasbourg in Germany. It took 3 years to produce or manufacture 180 copies of Bible. That was according to the standard time that it was very less time he has consumed, whereas in order to produce a wood block printing, or we can say the manuscripts, it took a very long time, but in comparison to it, it was a very less time, that it was 3 years he had took to produce 180 copies with the help of printing machine. In the second half of 18th century, nearly about 20 million copies were printed. By the 16th century, the number rose to 200 million printing copies. So this was a recap what we have seen in the previous videos. Today we are going to learn about the print revolution, how print revolution it originated in different parts of the world, basically in Europe. With the printing press, a new reading public emerged. Books flooded a market, reaching out to an ever-growing readership. Earlier, reading was restricted to the elites. Elites here means a special category or special class, or a very distinguished class of the society. Common people are those people who were not distinguished personalities, who were not more popular, they were the ordinary peoples. They were not much educated, and they had a habit of oral culture. Oral culture here means somebody is going to read for them, and then they want to understand what is written in those printed materials. So we have sacred books, we have ballads, they were recited to them, then folk tales were narrated to them. So this is how they were able to understand how the printed materials were talking about, or what all it is about. Now books could reach to a wider section of people. In earlier, there was a hearing public, and now there was a reading public. This transition was not so simple. A transition here means that people, they used to hear a lot and they were uneducated, they were not literate, and therefore they cannot read. But the time has changed. From hearing, they have been able to read now, and they have become illiterate. So the books were printed by keeping in mind. Even those who cannot read could certainly enjoy listening to books being read out to them. Therefore, the printers, they started publishing popular ballads and folk tales, and such books would be profusely illustrated with pictures. By seeing the pictures and images, they were so amused, and the passion and the interest it created in them. The ballads were sung to them whenever there was gatherings in villages and other remote areas. Not everyone appreciated the printed materials. Those who appreciated the printed materials, they have a fear in them. Most of them, they were apprehensive about the effects that were easier access to the printed world, and wider circulation of books could have opened people's mind. So the people, they would be more aware about what is happening around them, what is happening in the society, how people, they are reacting, how the world is moving forward. So people's mind are going to be open up, they would be more aware of their nearby surroundings. It was feared that if there was no control over what was printed and read, then a rebellious nature or irreligious thoughts might spread among the people, and this will corrupt the society, and it would be very hard for the authorities to control the system. If that happened, the authority of the valuable literature would be destroyed. Here the valuable literature, specifically they are telling about the religious text and the books, or the norms and regulations of the societies which were controlled by the church. So that valuable literature is going to be destroyed. Expressed by religious authorities and monarchs, as well as many writers and artists, that this valuable literature is going to be destroyed. This anxiety was the basis of widespread criticisms of the new printed literature that had begun to circulate. In 1517, the religious reformer, popularly known as Martin Luther, wrote about 95 theses criticizing many of the practices and rituals of the Roman Catholic Church. So this man, Martin Luther, he was in Germany. He criticized the practices and rituals of Roman Catholic Church, and he put up his 95 theses on the Wittenberg church. He also proposed that the Roman Catholic Church or the authority, they can debate on those 95 theses. Luther's writings were immediately reproduced in vast numbers and read widely. This led to a division within the church and to the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. Luther's translation of New Testament sold 5,000 copies within a few weeks, and a second edition appeared within 3 months. Deeply grateful to print, Luther said, "Printing is the ultimate gift of God and the greatest one." Print and dissent. In the 16th century, Manetio, a miller in Italy, began to read books that were available in his locality. He reinterpreted the message of the Bible and formulated a view of God and creation. This enraged the Roman Catholic Church. When the Roman Catholic Church began its inquisition or inquiry to repress this heretical ideas, Manutius was hauled up twice and ultimately he was executed. The Roman Catholic Church, troubled by such effects of popular readings and questioning of faith, imposed severe controls over publishers and booksellers. And they also strictly started saying that they should maintain an index prohibited books from 1558 onwards. This index of prohibited books was listed by the Roman Catholic Church, and the booksellers and the publishers, they cannot publish anything about it. The reading mania. As literacy and school spread in European countries, there was a virtual reading mania. People wanted books to read, and printers produced books in ever increasing numbers. New forms of popular literature appeared in print, targeting new audiences. Booksellers employed peddlers who roamed around villages carrying little books for sale. There were almanacs or ritual calendars. Along with it, there were ballads and folk tales. But other forms of reading matter or materials were available largely for entertainment, which were read by ordinary readers. In England, penny chapbooks were carried by petty peddlers known as chapmen and sold for a penny so that even the poor could buy them. In France, there were the Bibliothèque Bleue, which were low-priced small books printed on poor quality paper and bound in a cheap blue covers. Then there were the romances printed on 4 to 6 pages, and more substantial histories, which were stories about the past. Books were of various sizes, serving many different purposes and interests. The ideas of scientist and philosopher. When scientists like Isaac Newton began to publish their discoveries, they could influence a much wider circle of scientifically minded readers. The writings of thinkers such as Thomas Paine, Voltaire, John Jacques Rousseau were also widely printed and read. Print culture and the French Revolution. First, print popularized the ideas of Enlightenment thinkers. Collectively, their writings provided a critical commentary on tradition, superstition, and despotism. During the French Revolution, these Enlightenment thinkers, or the educated people, or the reformers, or the learned peoples, they criticized about the tradition of French rulers, their superstitions, their despotic authority over the common citizens. They argued for the rule of reason rather than custom, and demanded that everything be judged through the application of reason and rationality. Second, print created a new culture of dialogue and debate. All values, norms, and institutions were re-evaluated and discussed by the public that had become aware of the power of reason. So the people, they have authority or the reason by which they can rationalize it out whether it is wrong or good or bad or good for the society. The values, the norms, and the institutions were examined, and it was discussed a lot among the public, and they were able to reason it out why it is happening in this society. And they recognize the need to question existing ideas and beliefs in this society. The third reason related with the French Revolution, the print, is by the 1780s there was an outpouring of literature that mocked the royalty and criticized their morality. Royalty, they criticized their royalty, and morality. Royalty related with the royal families, how much royal they are, whether they are supposed to do all those things as a royal person or as belonging to a royal class, they are supposed to act like that. What is their moral behavior, their values related with the society, related with the French people, related with the community. On that basis, cartoons and caricatures were devised. It was published in magazine, printed materials all over the society. In the community, we can see it was talking about the monarchy, how they were absorbed in the sensual pleasures, and how the common people, they are suffering from their hardships. Children, women and workers, and the print culture. As primary education, it became more compulsory in the European society. Children became an important category of readers. Production of school textbooks became critical for the publishing industry. A children press was devoted to literature for children. Was set up in France in 1857. This press published new work as well as old fairy tales and folk tales. The Grimm brothers in Germany spent years compiling traditional folk tales gathered from the peasants. What they collected was edited before the stories were published in a collection in 1812. Anything that was considered unsuitable for children or would appear vulgar to the elites was not included in the published version. So the rural folk tales thus acquired a new form. It was not an oral form, it was now in a printed form. In this way, print recorded old tales but also changed